of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, on the weekend, Dr. Bob Martell published a piece in the paper, which I'll table, where he compared preparations for Hurricane Dorian to preparations in our emergency rooms for the coming annual flu season. And he wasn't a favorable comparison he made. He wrote that while companies and governments and people began preparations just as soon as, if not before, the hurricane began to move north from the Bahamas, and we were blessed to come out of the storm with no loss of life, that every year in the flu season, on the other hand, people pass away because emergency rooms are inadequately prepared for the increased demands the flu season places on ERs. Mr. Speaker, with the flu season looming, is the Premier confident our emergency rooms this year are going to be prepared for the coming load?
The Honourable Premier.
Yes.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we did better with Dorian than we did with Juan because we learned from the experience with Juan, and our preparations as a result were improved. But, Mr. Speaker, our preparations, contrary to the Premier's confidence, were not all that wonderful in last year's flu season as far as emergency room overcrowding was concerned. Now, Dr. Martell writes about this and about how last flu season, NSHA supervisors at the Valley Regional Hospital asked physicians in ERs to attend to patients on stretchers in hallways because the overcapacity situation was so great. And one day at the end of the last season in the Valley, the emergency room at that hospital was 557% overcapacity. So I want to ask the Premier, what has the government learned from the poor performance with ER overcrowding last year for doing better this time round?
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, the honourable member raises an important question. Mr. Speaker, there's been a tremendous amount of preparation with healthcare providers across this province to continue to remind all Nova Scotians the importance of receiving the flu shot. Mr. Speaker, they particularly deal with vulnerable populations that are in their clinics. Mr. Speaker, we continue to provide that support. He would know every time we go through, there's a different strain associated with a flu. Causes challenges associated with delivering the vaccines, Mr. Speaker. Each time that happens, we continue to make sure that we maximize the use of the vaccines. We make sure that Nova Scotians recognize getting the flu shot early is an important step. It's why we've continued to work with pharmacists to broaden the ability for Nova Scotians to be able to access, to be able to get the vaccine, Mr. Speaker, to get their flu shot, and we'll continue to make sure that we continue to encourage Nova Scotians to be prepared.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, the concern that is being pressed here is not about the vaccine, but about the negative effect of ER overcrowding on proper service during the flu season. Now, it's very fair for people to be concerned about this. When 1/5 of our hospital beds are taken up with people who are supposed to be in nursing homes, so ERs have no place to admit those patients, and when 85% of the nurses in the province say that once a week at least they're working short on their shifts. Mr. Speaker, any competent person can see that these conditions are warning signs. So I want to ask the Premier why his government continues to ignore these very real signals.
The Honourable Premier.
I want to thank the honourable for the question, Mr. Speaker. Contrary to what he's saying in his statement, quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, we continue to ensure that we provide more people to provide the flu shot. One of his earlier questions talks about preparation. That's exactly what Nova Scotians need to do, Mr. Speaker. He also talked about, Mr. Speaker, there are those Nova Scotians, even with all of that work, still continue to contract the virus. I have all the confidence, Mr. Speaker, in our healthcare providers across this province to ensure they have the appropriate supports around them to deliver that service. He's also highlighting something, Mr. Speaker, around the emergency rooms. This government, Mr. Speaker, has made the largest single investment in healthcare infrastructure in this province's history, Mr. Speaker. Dealing with, Mr. Speaker, the QE2, Mr. Speaker, when they were in government, they ignored the fact. This government is not ignoring it, Mr. Speaker. We're not only dealing with the challenges of today, but we're preparing for the next 50 years, Mr. Speaker.